hey, thank you guys for joining us. Actually, right? We have Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor, the writers and creators of Welcome to Night Vale, here discussing their new Night Vale book, The Faceless Old Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your Home.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. So we're talking about the book. I will put the cover of the book up there for people to have. It's very pretty and very nice.
It is very pretty.
Yeah.
I have been enjoying it very much so far. I was mentioning earlier that I'm just about to the end, and I don't know what to expect. It's been a delight. I've been listening to the audiobook because I love Mara Wilson as the voice of the Faceless Old Woman, and having her read the novel has been a really pleasant experience. It's been a fun way to enjoy it.
Yeah, she was great. I obviously have read the novel several times, and then it was nice getting the audiobook version the week before it came out, and getting to listen to Mara was really, really nice. She's amazing. She's so good, and she walks that wonderful balance between creepy and trustworthy, and
absolutely.
And she's really great. I'm excited that you're getting near the ending. That was one of our favorite endings to write for any of the novels we've done.
Fun.
It was really cool to kind of to sort of know that from the get-go, and we're very excited about just kind of what this book does.
Sure. Was it different writing? The previous two Welcome to Night Vale books take, I don't want to say relatively minor characters, but I feel like Mara Wilson as the Faceless Old Woman has really, been such a presence on the show for a really long time. Was it different taking like that character to flesh out for a novel rather than someone who had been relatively in the background prior?
Yes and no. Like, in the same way you write a character, if you're going to write a novel about a character, you should have some interest in that character.
Well, yeah,
so
absolutely.
we always had, put a lot of thought into the characters we wrote. But the Faceless Old Woman it's more just such a voice. We kind of knew what she sounded like. We knew what she talked about, or what was it she was interested in, and so that kind of it gave us a basis to allow us to play around,
Sure.
And we knew we could always come back to this character that we knew really well.
How early on do you feel like this novel takes place over the last 250 years or whatever, and explores like what her upbringing was and what brought her to Night Vale, but how long before working on the novel did you know like about her backstory? Like, do you think you had a good idea about like where she had come from when you first were writing her for the show?
Not necessarily. I mean, we knew she was old. We knew she wasn't from Night Vale originally.
Yeah.
There was I don't know which episode it's in, but there's a brief moment in I want to say around like episode 70 or something like that, where she makes mention of living in Coral at some point in time, being in Coral or whatever, and we just had a lot of like weird imagery that we wanted to use with her, and just throughout. But yeah, a lot of it was like, I mean, that kind of stuff is not that significant, in terms
Sure.
of when we start writing the book. When we started writing the book, we had this idea of Joseph brought the Count of Monte Cristo up, and reading that, and you start thinking about kind of an epic tale and one of revenge, right? And and you think about this sort of royal screwing, and then how you spend your life trying to get revenge on somebody. So that was sort of the basis of where this went, and everything kind of in between her friends, and kind of each step she takes to get further along in her journey. Those were all sort of brand new things that came about in the writing of the book.
That makes sense. Yeah. There are a lot of really she interacts with so many very fascinating characters over the course of the novel, the friends she makes and the people that she works with, and they all have such a really great presence as well. She has kind of a motley crew of characters that she's working with for a while. it's fun getting to see a lot of like what her backstory was, because she has such a sort of manipulative presence, I would say, in the lives and the people of Night Vale. Do you feel that like kind of inspire, this tale of betrayal and revenge, and it seems like really up her alley anyway? Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, it came together in a number of ways. We kind of had a sense of, it was more structural at first in that we knew we wanted it to be big and to go all over the world and to span centuries. And I even just like made a list of places we could visit in this book, because I wanted this sense of a globe hopping book. And so the particulars of the story kind of came out of that desire. I knew I wanted to write something of a heist into it, which led to part 2, which is all kind of this band of thieves and this whole plot that they put together. And then, it was Jeffrey who kind of came in with the ending that sort of tied it all together. And that was definitely one where, as Jeffrey, I believe, said, we kind of have these conversations. Like, that's generally how we plot things out, is we start just by talking things through and kind of, here's what I'm thinking, and we try to find what's exciting for both of us in that. And when Jeffrey was like, this is what I think for the ending, I immediately was like, yes, absolutely, that is absolutely the ending. And I also was simultaneously just horrified, because it was such a brutally horrifying idea, but that sort of gave us a target, and then the entire rest of the book kind of got shaped to land in that horrifying moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked a little bit, well, I guess we didn't on this stream. We talked a little bit about like what the outlining process is like, and sort of coming up with what the structure of the story is going to be, and how different that is from like writing a podcast episode. It's always been really fun. Like, the thing that I enjoy the most, I think, about the Welcome to Night Vale novels is that you have a lot more of you can get a lot of interiority into characters that you don't necessarily get time to on the podcast, or the luxury to on the podcast. Do you enjoy, I mean, obviously I was going to say, do you enjoy writing stories in like different mediums like this, but like this is the 3rd book you put out. So do you have other characters that you'd like to flesh out more the way that you did the Faceless Old Woman?
I mean, definitely. The thing is that with the podcast, the great thing about it is we can always flesh out characters there. You can always say like, oh, who's not getting enough shine right now is Steve Carlsberg. Let's write some episodes that feature Steve Carlsberg, or let's figure out what Tamika's up to, or whatever, and you can kind of revisit people and watch as they get older. We had a really great episode recently by guest writer Bree Williams that sees Josh Creighton, who's now in college. He's the 15-year-old from the first Night Vale novel. And he's off in college now. And so there's some really, it's really great to be able to always kind of develop any character we want, sort of whenever we want. With the novels, it's a little tougher to say, let's grab this somewhat interesting character and make a book around them, because you do sort of like with the Faceless Old Woman, we want to know more about her, but we need that framework to be able to tell that story. So once we talked about it and we had this idea of like, okay, there's revenge, it's epic, it is globe hopping, there's elements of heist, there's elements of like preparation for a big task, some type of thing like that, then you start having sort of you start getting a loose framework for a full novel. But just to be like, what's Tamika Flynn up to is not quite a novel. You have to start mapping out just exactly what the entire plot is. Not to say that Tamika Flynn wouldn't be a fascinating novel. It's just I don't right at this point. It takes so much work to actually turn the seed of the idea, as in the Faceless Old Woman, to actually like the full novel of what this whole story is.
That makes sense. I imagine the writing process for the novel is vastly more time consuming and involved than like writing an episode of the podcast. Like the show runs for a set amount of time, and you have you have to be a lot more concise.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
No. I mean, I like it when we get into the novel. I mean, like once we start getting on a roll with the novel, it's a lot of fun. It's the type. It's really, really fun to really get on a roll with the novel, because you can, on some days you can feel like, man, I wrote 5,000 words today towards a single story, and you feel so productive. And then some days you feel like I wrote 5,000 words toward a story, and I am 70,000 words away from finishing it.
Yeah.
So it can work both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I really love writing novels. It's the thing I've always wanted to do, and want like that. That's kind of been the focus for me for a very long time, and so it's really enjoyable and satisfying to get to do. But there is something about podcasting of just, the thing about a novel is, I mean, partly it's, as Jeffrey says, you write and you are like, I had a really great day. I wrote 1% of this novel.
Yeah.
And so it's such a marathon that it can be really, you have to kind of really keep your energy up. And then also you finish, and then there's such a long time before anyone can get to read it. We finished the first draft of this book probably close to 2 years ago now. And so with a podcast, it's really enjoyable to just be able to have an idea, write it in a short enough form that sometimes you can just write the entire first draft in one sitting. That's happened before. If you're really inspired and you really have this idea you want to run with, and then a week and a half later, I mean, that annoys Cecil, because that means we're behind on sending him recordings if the window is that short. But sometimes a week and a half later, it's out in the world and being listened to by people. And that kind of quick turnaround is really enjoyable. It really allows you to test out ideas and then immediately see how they go.
Yeah, the response must be a lot different, like you're saying, you do sort of have an immediate kind of reaction to what that thing you've written, how it sounds and what people think when the episodes come out. The waiting game for the novel must be exhausting sometimes. You sit on that book for a long time. Do you have, I don't know how much you can talk about like other things you're working on, but do you have like other Night Vale books in the works, or other projects that you can shout out?
We're always working on stuff. We actually just sat down last Friday, and talked for like an hour and a half about a new thing. But the thing is, the way that works is like, that's not something we're going to be able to talk about for a very long time.
That makes sense.
It's such a nebulous early stage that I'm not sure we'd even talk about it with like our agent or whatever. Like, it's just not even in a place to present. And even that, I have stuff that's farther along, but even then it's kind of up to publishers when that stuff gets announced. So that, the problem is generally anything we're working on now won't be announced until long after we've stopped working on it. One thing I am working on now, it's not a book, but I started a new podcast called Our Plague Year. That is writers and people all over the country and the world documenting what's going on right now, week by week. It's sort of meant to be this island in a sea of bad news. It's a place to leave behind the headlines and just kind of sit with the emotional aspects of it a little bit with everyone else, and kind of reflect on this moment as we're experiencing it, rather than as a bunch of headlines. So that's kind of the thing I've been publicly working on right now.
That makes sense. It's been kind of a bastion in all these like chaos. I was very excited when I heard that you had like a new project that was coming out in the midst of all of this. And then you also do, Jeffrey, you do Within the Wires. That's running its third season, right?
We're writing our fifth season right now.
Wow.
So we just finished our fourth at the beginning of the year, and then
gotcha.
So we just
I fell so far behind. I apologize.
Well, I look forward to you. Fourth was a wild ride, so I'm looking forward to you.
Yeah, I'll have to dip back in.
It's obviously Within the Wires is is a podcast told in 10 episode seasons. Each one is its own storyline, but all kind of take place in the same world. So it's an anthology series. It's a little bit different than Night Vale in that we have to track a whole story in 10 episodes. It's also told entirely through found audio. So season 1 is all relaxation cassettes that sort of tell the story of a prison escape from some type of medical institution, that the person giving you your breathing exercises and things like that is trying to like code an escape for you. And season 2, we did all museum audio guides that tell the story of a missing artist. And we just finished writing the first draft of episode 8 for the new season. So we just have 2 more to go, and then we'll have some time in June or July to get it recorded and produced.
That'd be awesome.
And put it out at the end of August.
Do you feel like, because those are self-contained seasons, do you feel like you have a similar sort of approach for like outlining what the structure is going to be that you'd have to do for the novels?
Yeah. So similar to the way Joseph and I work, my co-writer of Within the Wires, Janina Matthewson, she and I kind of do a similar thing, which is we sit around and chat and talk about kind of what we want to do for the new season. And, we talk through kind of what we think, who the narrator is going to be, what it is that they want, what they're after, and what the framing of that season is, and kind of beginning, middle, and end of how the story works. And then we both kind of collaborate on putting together an outline. And once we have the outline of episodes, then we can break those up. And
that makes sense.
And you write this, I'll write that, and then we'll swap.
It looks like we've got some questions from people that are watching. Who's your favorite voice to write for the podcast?
I don't know, like if I have a favorite. I mean, I really enjoy writing for kind of everyone has their own thing, and you kind of write for that. One of the ways we write, especially for the live shows, is we try to write towards what the person can do and also challenge them a little bit. If we know they can do something, we try to find a way to really push that. We do that obviously all the time with Cecil. Live shows are in many ways just this gauntlet of us trying out things for him to perform that are increasingly difficult. But one example we bring up a lot is we found out that Hal Lublin, who plays Steve Carlsberg, is good at impressions. And he did a few of those for us. And then I decided to write a passage in a live show in which he had to rapidly impersonate every other performer in the cast. And he more or less pulled it off. He fell apart right on the last one. But like the whole point is writing towards that. It's to me, my philosophy of that is it's really, really interesting. Whether they succeed or not, it's really interesting to watch a talented person try as hard as they can to do something very difficult.
Yeah.
It's the thing about like watching acrobats. Even if they don't quite land the trick, just the sheer difficulty of what they're trying to do is mesmerizing to watch. And so you try to sometimes write that for your performers.
Got it. We also have someone who asked, do you find it harder creating a setting and atmosphere in books or on the podcast?
I mean, I think for me, I've always, coming out of a theater background, like I think in terms of like the way words sound more.
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't really ever think about one being harder than the other. I think I'm probably just more used to writing for the podcast because I know I'm more used to writing for actors. Although with 3 books written now, I mean, it's like we have 270,000 words written into novels at this point, so I don't feel like I'm a novice at it. But but at the same time, I always feel it's not so much about novels being harder as just that my background has always been in writing for actors and writing for the stage. And so something about creating an atmosphere for the podcast, using mostly the way Cecil's voice sound or the guest voice sounds like that's always more in my comfort zone, personally.
That makes sense. I feel like sorry, that is my neighbor's dog is not happy.
It's a good boy.
Yeah. Her name is Leia.
Oh, she's a good girl.
she sorry, that totally threw off the question I was going to ask you.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm at, you know, Night Vale has such a distinct sort of tone that has developed over the time that you guys have been writing it. In the lost version of this video, we talked a little bit about like writing outside of Night Vale, like working in settings that are, you know, different from the town that we know and love from the podcast. Do you find it more difficult when you're like writing these characters in like unfamiliar spaces, in spaces that don't have the same like weirdness that Night Vale does?
Well, I mean, the weirdness comes from us, not the place.
Sure.
Like, we created. And so a lot of it is, you know, for me, Night Vale is less a place and it's more a voice. It's the language we use to write in. It's this shared writing voice that Jeffrey and I can slip into that doesn't really sound exactly like either of us on our own. It's just this shared thing we can go into. And so even if you're writing about Hamburg, Germany, or Paris or wherever, you know, if you're kind of using that voice and that way of looking at the world, to me, that's just as much Night Vale as the town itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Someone asked if you had to spend one day in Night Vale, what would you do?
Hide?
Probably. Yeah, I was going to survive.
Probably try to survive. I mean, I think like if there's a place to go to, I'm probably most interested in, like, it seems like very few people die at the Moonlight All Night.
I was just thinking that too.
That place seems fairly chill. I mean, we did have a few in a story about them. I'm trying to remember the story about them. I think somebody gets murdered in the diner, so there's that. But
pretty sure in the first novel, there's also
somebody dying.
One of them gets attacked in the diner. I'm trying to remember.
It's not totally the safest place, but obviously like safer than the library or dog park or what have you. Yeah,
that is very true.
Yeah,
Night Vale has the advantage of being one of the few places, has the distinct honor of being one of the few places from works of fiction that I would not want to go visit.
Sure. You can always huddle out back of the Ralphs.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Join the huddle.
Yeah.
How do you guys, I know you guys have been writing together for a long time. Do you guys take like turns writing episodes of the podcast or like chapters of the book? Like, how does that work? Do you edit each other?
You know that scene in the movie Ghost where they're making pottery, and the ghost of Patrick Swayze kind of gently reaches around her and helps her form the shape on the wheel. It's exactly like that with a laptop. No, we our writing process is basically the same no matter what we're working on. It starts with conversations and then assignments of, hey, I'll write this. With the podcast, we've been doing it long enough that, we just essentially usually take turns, although sometimes one of us will get busy and the other, or one of us will be inspired and just be like, hey, I have a bunch to do. Is that the same?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's our writing process.
That's me and Jeff's writing process.
So it's not exactly back and forth, but we write entirely separately. We write on our own. And then, we kind of trade. And sometimes, especially with like a novel, the other person will do pretty intensive edits, especially if, we're trying to make sure, does this all fit together? Oftentimes when we initially put together our parts from the novel, there's going to be stuff that just doesn't fit. Plot, we made different story choices or characters act a little differently. And so that immediately you have to kind of try and find and meld together. With the episodes, sometimes there's a lot of editing, but a lot of times it's just, hey, this looks great. I added one joke here. And that's the entire thing. So it really varies. But that's been our writing process for 8 years or so now.
Yeah.
what about the novel are you the most proud of?
I love the structure of it. Like I think, this is our third novel writing together, and it's it's fun when one of the things about just, I was going to say about being an artist, but I think it's about any profession really, is that you get better at things as you go along. And that doesn't mean that a natural progression where everything you do is slightly better than the thing before. That's not always true. Even if you are overall getting better, if you just do something and you like doing something over time, you will on average get much better at it. And this just felt, I don't know. I felt us getting better even after 8 years. I feel us getting always better at writing together. I always feel us better at just writing in general. I feel us getting better at Night Vale, and it's exciting to do. It's exciting to get to do a show like this for so long, get to have these books come out every couple of years, and it just I was very happy with how we pulled this story off, because I think we wanted to make something that went outside of the city of Night Vale, that went outside of the present day time, that sort of explored, while a familiar character for people who listen to the podcast, it's still one that her name and you've heard her a few times, but we haven't gone into a ton of depth. But so it really was, you could almost say, you could just not even call the town Night Vale. You could take out a few jokes here and there, and it really feels like a revenge thriller, like an epic revenge thriller. And I don't know, I just think we made a really cool novel that fits so well for Night Vale lovers and people who've never heard of Night Vale before, and you pick it up and you're like, this makes perfect sense. This is super scary and engrossing. I just thought we hit all those balances really, really well, and like Joseph said earlier, like we were so happy with the ending, and it's scary and unnerving and all of that.
Absolutely. How did you guys, you said you've been writing together for 8 years. How did you guys start writing together? What was that process like when you first started collaborating?
I feel like it's been such a long time since I've told this story, because we used to tell the story all the time, and then I just kind of stopped for some reason. We met when Jeffrey was doing performance art in the East Village in New York City, and he did a piece in which he burned a book. And I went up to him afterwards and told him I thought the piece was immoral. And that's how we became friends. I just was spending a lot of time with that theater company at the time. I just moved to New York. I didn't really know anyone, and what they were doing seemed so interesting to me. I learned so much about the possibilities of art and theater from the work they were doing. The way they thought about writing and about performing were not ones I'd ever thought about before. And so it was really exciting to me. And Jeffrey was one of the people that early on, we just started talking a lot, and it became apparent we had similar ideas about writing and kind of similar interests. And so in 2010, I think, we started writing a play together called What the Time Traveler Will Tell Us, that we performed in the East Village in 2011, and then went on from there.
Yeah,
that's really fun. Someone asked if could there be a theater adaptation of Night Vale?
I mean, there is. There is. I mean, it's been performed 300 something times.
Yeah, we do a touring live show.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing either if they weren't familiar with that, then yes, we do. We're obviously not right now, but we do a touring live show of Welcome to Night Vale. It's always a brand new story. We never bring the same show to any city more than once, and and so we're on our 6th or 7th live show tour at this point.
I've gotten to see a couple of them, and they're always a blast.
They're a lot of fun, and they, Cecil Baldwin, the actor, is so good on stage. He carries the show. And we always have guest parts, on stage with him too. And it's a lot of fun. He uses the energy of the audience so well. I mean, he really, really feeds them energy and then takes what they give right back. We always kind of incorporate a lot of audience interactive things. There's something that we want the audience to have to participate in some form or fashion. Not like late night improv, level 1 improv, but like in the way that like you use the audience's voices, or you use them physically, or things like that. You know, we had you know, we did a bit once that involved everyone using their camera phone flashlights, and it was always a cool effect in the theater to see that. You know, as far as like theater adaptation, meaning like a musical or like a straight Broadway play or something, there could be. There's not in the near future. Haven't even thought about anything like that. So in general, from the point of view of the word could, theoretically yes, but we don't have anything in the works like that.
Gotcha. I think that's all the questions that we had from folks that were watching. I want to thank you so much for being here, you guys. This was a lot of fun. It was really great to
Gary, thank you so much.
Possibility to chat with you guys.
I love you guys down there. I hope you guys are doing great in San Diego, and hopefully we get to come back to your store again someday.
Yeah, that would be great.
Future. Yes, absolutely.
We have I have been informed that we have Rebecca novel. Missed one question. I did miss a question. Someone asked, as far as characters go, Rebecca has such a huge impact in the novel. Is there a possibility to create a novel driven by her?
There's always a possibility for everything. I would say it's pretty unlikely in the near future, just because we already are working on a bunch of different other things that are kind of our next few years probably. And so anything after that sure is a possibility, but that's already been mapped out, the next few things we're doing. Rebecca's a character I really love. She's one that I think is kind of the most important to me, because I knew when I was kind of creating this band of characters for her in part 2 that I really wanted an Eastern European Jewish person in there, because that is where my family is from. And so getting to write about that culture and getting to explore that a bit with that character, even minor, you know, the novel is not really about that, but just getting to bring some of those elements in was really enjoyable for me.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We like I said, I'm almost to the end, and I have been enjoying the ride the whole time.
Awesome.
It's been really just like fascinating to see all these different characters and places that we haven't really explored in Night Vale before.
Well, I'm excited for you. I hope you like the ending as much as we enjoyed writing it. I hope you have a lot of fun with that.
Absolutely.
And you do it right before bed.
Yes, perfect. That's what I'll do. I'm like so close. I'll finish it up today, I'm sure.
Great.
I believe we have a link where people can order copies of the book from our website above this video on Facebook, as far as I'm aware. And we also have signed book plates, I believe we're getting from you guys for folks who order the book with us.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you so much. So guys, go buy the book. Check out the podcast and all of the other great work that Jeffrey and Joseph do.
It's disappearing into the chopped kitchen.
Oh, no.
So sad. Oh well.